Good morning, Colonel.
Mike.
Nice to see you. For the benefit of the committee, the Colonel and I know each other. We both served federally in the same area for many years, and I followed your career through the Attorney General's office, and I think the governor made a very wise decision putting you where you are, because I really respect your opinion and your experience, and I appreciate you being here to help us.
Thank you.
Because we're trying to find the right thing to do for our kids, and I think that your input is just invaluable. I have just a couple questions, and because I think you're probably the, if not the, one of the foremost people who had, I don't think many people in the state have as much experience as you do, and I value that so much. I wanted to ask you about something Director Cannon said, who testified previously, about his thought was that force with force was something that had to be strongly considered. If we look at the incident in Connecticut, had there been an armed police officer in that vestibule as that person entered, I think you would probably agree with me that that event may not have taken place. Do you agree with that statement?
I don't know if it would have taken place. I mean, I can't tell that, but it might have had a different outcome. And as you look at these incidents, they're always looking for a soft target. In other words, the least defensible, the most vulnerable. That's what they're looking for. So having an unarmed presence, now that doesn't mean somebody couldn't come through, and I think there was one where they came and the first thing they did was shot the officer who was armed. You know, he was there watching the kids as they came in. So it's nothing is foolproof. But yes, you know, I think that might have had an effect on that incident. Yes. Okay.
And then looking at the proposals that have been in existence, you talked briefly about arming civilians or teachers, and I had a little back and forth with Director Cannon about that, and we came to a consensus, I think, that having someone in the school who has the experience, the training of over many years of dealing with simulations and role-playing and situations, and then applying that to their job every day as a police officer, that type of training really can't be duplicated when given to a civilian or a teacher.
No.
Do you agree with that statement?
I do agree with that, and let me explain. I've been in situations where there's shooting and things going on, and I think I might have heard the end of that, and you were talking about muscle memory. People react according to their training, because in these type of situations you don't have a chance to think. And I see you have, I know you have several law enforcement officers that are on your committee here, and I'm sure they would agree with me. You react the way you were trained. That does not, you don't get that from going to a firing range for 3 hours and passing a test. That's not enough training. If you have law enforcement training, you know, like I said, it's 6 months to become a law enforcement officer in the state of Pennsylvania. There's a reason it takes that long, and that training is so crucial, because there's a danger in putting people that are not well trained with firearms in the school. There can be mistakes. There can always be a mistake, but I think you really increase the chances if they don't have the law enforcement training. So I'm very cautious, and I know in some states they're doing that, but I'd be very cautious about that. You wouldn't want to create a tragedy, and I think there would be a real possibility in that.
Would you agree that carrying a firearm is indeed a liability, and that it takes experience, having the responsibility of having that firearm on your side, to really become comfortable and to reduce the chances that there would be an accident in a place like a school, you know,
yes.
An accidental discharge or something like that. Do you think with an experienced guy those possibilities become minuscule?
Absolutely. And as I say, it all goes back to training. You know, we've all had our experiences. I started in the Marine Corps, and I mean, they drill it into you, the weapon safety and things such as that, and we in the state police, certainly the shoot, don't shoot, we have all kinds of scenarios we train on, what the proper use of force is at a time, because once your adrenaline gets kicked in, if you don't have that training, And we can see it because we've taken a lot of, we've taken some civilians out to our training where we have video things where when do you shoot, when do you not, and people get excited, and you can see it, and it's a normal human response. So I'd be very cautious about giving guns to people without, unless they're very well trained.
Okay. I've proposed a bill which proposes putting retired police officers in school, state, municipal police officers in school. And I want to talk to you a little bit about, if you don't mind, about the retirement of a state trooper. Mm-hmm. Am I correct to say that it's a 25-year retirement at any age?
Yes, right? it is, and but you can also have 20. You
can also have 20.
Is it 20 at?
Yes, at a lower payout.
Yeah, so you get a lower payout.
Right.
Yeah.
So essentially, you can come on at 21. So you could retire at age 41.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yes.
And during that career of a state trooper, they have in-service training where they're constantly training with their firearms and being exposed to active shooter training, the scenarios. And you were mentioning earlier about the machine that simulates, and you put me through that. I think you jacked that thing up to level 20 or something like that. But you're right; it does raise your blood pressure a little bit when you're going through it. But needless to say, when a guy retires after a career in the state police, he is a very capable, fully trained law enforcement officer. Correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'd say he's maybe the finest trained law enforcement officer in the country, as far as I'm
perhaps the world.
Perhaps the world.
Okay.
Yes.
So, with that as a backdrop, could you think of any better type of person to be carrying a gun in a school?
No, I think that would be the ideal as far as I'm concerned. If you're going to have armed people in the schools, that would be the ideal, and that would be the kind of people I would be looking for.
Okay. So is there any prohibition within the state contracts for a retired state trooper to become reemployed by a school district if he's hired as a private contractor?
No, he can do that. In fact, we have several of them. I think is it Beaver County?
Yes.
Where they have mostly retired state police in almost all of their school buildings.
Okay, and I know that's relatively new, correct?
Yes, I believe that came about recently.
As a result of Newtown.
Yes.
Yeah. And has that been successful?
So far, yes.
Okay. Good. Now, just one more question, if you don't mind, regarding you talked about response time being 3 minutes.
Yes.
And I know that one of the issues that you face as commissioner is due to budgetary constraints of local municipalities. Many times they disband their police departments and they ask you to become their police force. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, Commissioner, you're not always compensated in more troops, are you? Or are you?
We're never. No,
Never
and we're
are.
not compensated with more troops. No, absolutely we're not. But we are the default police agency for the state. Any area that disbands their police department, we do not have a choice. We become the police department for that area. And where that creates some problems is in our response times, because now we're covering more areas, whereas and that is a trend. I probably because of the recession that was going on, and that many. I think we had 10 or 12 departments disband in the past year, and then we had another 10 that reduced their hours. So, like, say they may cover from 8 to 5. On weekdays, but then the rest of the time we're covering. So all of that, it is something that we have to deal with.
So you could find yourself, through no fault of your own, in a situation where you have just taken over a new municipality which may have a high school, a middle school, and 3 or 4 elementary schools. But your troop is 20 minutes, a half hour away,
right.
And your allotment of troopers may be on a tractor-trailer accident on the highway, and something could happen, and your response time would be lengthy.
Right,
Yeah.
certainly. That's just the way it is, yes.
So, with that scenario that I just gave you, do you feel it'd be valuable to have an officer who has real-time communications with your officers on site in the event of an emergency at a school?
Sure, but once again, I would want to make sure that it would be something that the school district wanted. I would not want to see us impose requirements, but I think that in that circumstances, certainly, I think that would be very helpful.
Okay, well, we talked a little bit with Secretary Tamales, and I think at the end he agreed with me in that although you're a very, very accomplished man, and I wouldn't doubt if you had school teacher somewhere on your resume, Colonel, but he agreed with me in that we have people making decisions in school districts about security who have very little background, if any background, in police work or in facility security work. We have people making those decisions in our school districts right now that are impacting our children's safety, correct?
Oh, yes, certainly. And,
do you think that's a good thing?
Well, it is the way things are. The school superintendent and the school board, they basically make the decisions. In Butler, they decided to hire retired state troopers to go in there. Other municipalities I know are completely against having anybody with a firearm in their school. I know that. I don't want to. I'm not looking to argue with any of them. They all have their reasons, but from my own opinion, I think in a situation like you were recommending, having an armed guard would be very effective. I think it's much more effective than having, as long as they're trained. I do think that's effective.
Okay. Colonel, thank you so much for being here.
You betcha.
It's nice talking to you. Thank you, sir.